Welcome to Hacking Your ADHD. I'm your host, William Kerb, and I have ADHD. On this podcast, I dig into the tools, tactics, and best practices to help you work with your ADHD brain. Hey team, we're back for part 2 of my conversation with Russ Jones, host of the ADHD Big Brother podcast and head of his community-based ADHD coaching of the same name. In this half of the conversation, we get into the nitty-gritty of how to actually get yourself to do the things you know you want to do, whether that's tackling laundry, setting, and remembering goals, or just getting yourself unstuck when ADHD inertia hits. We talk about how traditional goal setting can fail for some of us with ADHD, and try and flip that around, why accountability makes everything more manageable, and how structuring tasks in a fun, interest-driven way can make all the difference. Russ also shares some of his best hacks for dealing with executive dysfunction, including gamifying chores, breaking through mental resistance, and using community as a force multiplier for motivation. Now, just as a note, you don't have to listen to the first half of the conversation to get out a lot of this episode, but just want you to know that this is part 2. And if you'd like to follow along on the show notes page, you can find that at hackingYourADHD.com/214. All right, keep on listening to find out how to build momentum, follow through, and stop getting stuck at the starting line.
It feels weird that we forget about our goals. Like that feels like that. Doesn't it? It's like, oh yeah, this is the thing I want. And then that's just going to stick in there forever. And I'm like, that's a huge red flag to think that, because there's nothing in my brain that is stuck in there forever. Like
yes.
How do I think that I'm going to keep something in my head for a year and not forget it? For a month, for a week, I'm like, I need those reminders.
Because we think it's going to be embedded in our soul. We think it's going to become our new mindset or because we thought it changes everything. I'm like, I agree with you 100%. Like, you could literally have your 2024 goals right outside your door, but when you walk to the kitchen to go grab a drink, you're going to forget your 2024 goal. That's a guarantee. We're all in service of like, is it important? Where is it going to be so it lives in front of your face? And then where's your support system to keep it not only in front of your face, but people to keep rooting for you, like hope surrogates, right? When we're like, I believe in you. I think you're going to do it. I'm going to ask you about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've done that with people where I was just like, oh, you have to do it. And they like ask me about it. I'm like, oh, geez, why did I tell someone about that? Now I have to do something?
Shoot, I said I was going to do that, didn't I?
Yeah. That came up recently. I had been shopping some ideas around some friends at the International ADHD conference. And then I talked to them one earlier this week, and they're like, oh yeah, how about this thing? And I'm like, oh, I should do something about that. That should not live in my head anymore. That should go on a list of projects that I'm eventually going to get to. Not today, but eventually.
Yeah. Do you get like that way where you're in the moment? It's like sky's the limit. You're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. I'm going to become this person. I'm going to do that thing.
It is so easy to envision myself having an infinite amount of energy, an infinite amount of motivation, and just not wanting to do any of the things that I know are bad for me.
Oh my gosh. Same these.
And then especially, lying in bed at night when I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to do tomorrow. And I'm like, wake up like, oh, I'm tired still. Apparently I need more than 7 hours of sleep, and listening to my dog bark at 6:30 is not helpful. Okay. So
do you ever think about black and white thing? Sometimes I really lean into my black and white thinking. I know we call it a cognitive distortion a lot of times, but man, having a black and white boundary on certain things has been really helpful for me. I know with addiction type stuff, it's the way to go. But even with ADHD type things, when I'm doing things black and white, I tend to be more successful. Like bedtime at 9:30.
Yeah, exactly. So I was telling you, I was at that friend's party, last weekend, and
yeah,
it was out of my routine. I was like, oh, I don't need to do my bedtime at 9:30. I should still get to bed, at a reasonable time. But I'm like, 2 a.m. is apparently way too late to be getting up, especially when my body is used to getting up at 6:30. And so doing that kind of thing where it's just like, oh my God, when I didn't have that rule, my body went, there's no rules at all now. That black and white thinking is nice. Like, this is the rule. This is what I do. When you break the rule, like, oh, there's no rules. I can do whatever I want. And it's like, I shouldn't go that way either.
Yeah. Like thinking about stuff like alcohol. Like if I have alcohol in the house, I will just, I don't moderate. I don't know how to moderate. And you would think that you could just be an adult and be like, oh no, when there's just have one because having a whiskey is great and it's fun and you love it. Like, okay, but when I have a whiskey, if I have it in the house, I'll just keep having whiskey. So okay, that's a problem. There was a problem with the nicotine. Like, oh, just have a cigarette. That's not a real thing to have just a cigarette. Some people out there in the world can do that stuff. They can moderate. And to just know myself and be like, oh, that's just not who I am. Okay, so let me set up some black and white boundaries instead of being like, well, let's work in the gray here. Like, there's no gray.
Yeah. Well,
there's no successful gray.
Yeah. Understanding where you do and don't have those issues. Like,
yeah.
I feel very privileged in that I have no problems with alcohol. Like,
wow, must be nice, William. Must be real nice to be you.
Yeah. New Year's, like my wife like poured me a glass of champagne and I drank half of it. I'm like, oh, this is nice. And then I forgot about it. And I was like, oh, that is a clear sign that this is not an issue, even though, 20s was definitely a different time. But now it's just like, oh, yeah, I forgot that was a thing. But there's like other things where I'm like, oh, there's cookies on the counter for now.
Yeah, all kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
For me, it could be sometimes it would be like if I have potato chips or something and I'm in the middle of currently binging a series. Like if there's a series that I'm watching, I have a real hard time with the nighttime. Like, oh, chips and binging. Like that to me it's really hard to put moderation on that stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking about the same thing because I was like started watching a show yesterday. I was like, oh, I'll have some lunch and I'll watch this thing. And I'm like, why did I watch 4 1-hour episodes in the middle of the day? Now I don't have a day any left.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, yeah, like, or social media being like, oh,
yeah.
Like, I'm like, I have a very serious block on my computer to prevent me from going on Reddit now. Cause I'm like, I'll just go and read things that make me upset and make me not want to do anything for hours if I let myself do it.
That's actually something that I would be interested to hearing about. This is hacking your ADHD. What's the hack? What is the thing that you put on your computer that prevents the...
Right now I have a application called Freedom.
Freedom. What is it?
It is a browser extension, or I have the like app installed on the computer and I can set it to automatically block websites or kinds of websites at certain times automatically. Right now I have Reddit blocked 23 hours and 59 minutes a day.
Oh, you get one quick minute with it?
Yeah, 3 a.m. So if I'm at, I can do it.
That's He's like, if I really wanted to, I could do it.
Yeah, and it even has like things where I'm like, it won't allow me to force quit the application now.
Oh, right on.
Which I'm like, yeah, because I would totally would if I could.
Yeah.
I have figured ways to get around it if I really want to, but they're involved enough that I can be like, well, I'm not going to do that because it's enough separation from the thought of doing it and not.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Like there's enough tension and time for you to be self-aware enough to be like, oh, that's right. So you have time to get off of autopilot. Is that it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And I have currently nothing on my phone, just utility apps, no games, no social media. There is browser, which I use to read Wikipedia, but I don't mind that. Like it is me. I'm like, oh yeah, I was on my phone for 45 minutes today. That's fine. Like that's not that much. 45 minutes
that's awesome.
Yeah. And it was just like, oh, it's like, what's your most used app? Messaging. Great. That's
I'm social. Yay.
Yeah. I don't even have email on my phone right now because I was like, that's a problem.
Do you really? That is freaking next level.
Yeah. It was weird. I went to that party. I didn't bring a computer. I was like, I can't even check my email while I'm here. It's fine. It was fine. It was great.
This is okay. So here's the thing. This is the kind of thing that I would bring into my community. Like we do challenges. I get stuff like this that you're saying. Like I don't even have email on your phone. That to me creates a challenge in my head. I'm like, oh, could I do that? I'm going to create a 30-day no email on my phone challenge. Let's go. Who wants to play with me? And then we all are miserable together. Or we all are like, oh, how's it going for you? I can't do it. I have to. But that's how that kind of stuff becomes fun to me. It's by gamifying it a bit. Like I'm literally talking to you on a personal level. Like I think I'm going to do that, and it scares the crap out of me.
I mean, there have been times I'm like, man, I would be like, I was like, oh, I should, dang it, can't do that right now.
You have to go to your computer to check your email.
Yeah. And it makes me more likely to respond to my email because I'm not just like glancing at it and be like, oh yeah, that. I'll read something and be like, oh, I can do something about that because I'm sitting here and I can deal with it.
Oh, dude. William, you're breaking a habit that I have that I've been wanting to get out of, which is first thing in the morning when I wake up, I look and see what kind of emails I have. Because there's like a joy in that. Like, I wonder what kind of, if I get a call or if, is there an appointment today or what's going to happen today? There's like a joy in that. But I don't know that that's the most effective way for me to start my day for my brain. So I'm really juiced up about this. So,
I mean, it took a bit to get used to. The first day I took everything off my phone, I kept picking it up and looking at it and just staring at it and being like, there's nothing here. Yeah. But I can't stop. And then a few days later, it was like, okay, I'm still doing it occasionally, but I'll open up and look and be like, I don't know why I'm here. I'm expecting this to entertain me. But like doing that also made me like, oh, I am picking this up for a reason. And I don't like that reason that I'm like, I don't want to be doing these things to just cure this boredom that I'm feeling for a few seconds. There are other things I can do in my life that are better, that I enjoy more than looking at my phone. So let me incentivize that instead of having this thing that's just so easy to do that's the reason I do it.
Yeah. Oh my God. I challenge every single one of your listeners that don't have jobs that require them to answer emails on their phones. But I think we should do that.
I mean, that was like the thing for me. I was like, why am I needing to read this on my phone? Like there are certain times when it has been useful, but it is not considering any of the, like at any use does not consider the cost that can come along with something. Cause we're like, oh yeah, anything can be useful, but everything has a cost as well. And so if we're not measuring both, that's something that is, you're going to just end up being like, I have all these tools that I don't use and they actually kind of hurt me because I mean, that's kind of like why we've like, everyone's jumped on social media. Like we're just like, oh, this is great because it does this connection thing, but it also has this huge other like dark side that we're kind of just okay with now because everyone's on social media.
Yeah. That's the new social norm, right? It's the new normal of I'm thinking now because now that I don't have the mail app is still on my phone, but when I click on it, it's like, hey, do you want to connect one of your emails? So it's gone. Now I'm thinking, okay, so it's just one less casual thing I can glance at when I have my phone down. When like that's going to free up a lot. And so then if I'm really, it's going to make me prioritize emails in terms of time blocking it, right? I have to have a dedicated email time.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff that I find is like, what am I making easier? What am I making harder? And how is that going to influence my choices? Like, what's the easiest breakfast for me to have? If I make having a healthy breakfast easier, that's what I'm going to eat. Lowering the resistance to the things I want to do, increasing resistance to the things I don't want to do. It's like, if I'm playing video games too much and I want to play fewer video games, actually make it so like, okay, I'm going to put this away when I'm not playing it. But if I like have like this, like my little DS with Mega Man on it sitting on my desk in front of me, whenever I'm bored, I'm going to pick up and play a little bit of Mega Man. It's, if I don't want to do that, let's put it away. If I want to be like, oh, I want to read more, I'm going to just bring my Kindle with me and set it on my desk. And so then I'm like, oh, when I've got free 5 minutes where I'm bored and I don't want to engage with something, I'll do that.
This is like literally, that is ADHD, like out of sight, out of mind. You're playing to the fact that we do forget, like we forget our goals when we walk out of the room. You'll forget the DS if it's not right in front of your face waiting for you to play it, right? In some cases, right? There will always still be that draw. Like I'm still going to now have a draw to check my email because there's a little bit of a tension point to it. There's a little bit of a self-awareness of like, oh, is this email time? No. Or is this not email time now? Oh, okay, now I can make a decision. I think this is really fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, and it's doing this with the community stuff where like, I'm going to do this. This is going to be hard. And I want someone to check in on me about it because I don't know if I'm going to keep up if I just say this on my own is huge. Cause that's like, there have been so many times where I've just done something like, oh, I'm going to do this thing. And then like a week later, I'm like, well, I'm just going to undo that because I can.
1,000%. This is a great point. I'm playing to the integrity that we were talking about earlier. So now as soon as we get off this, I'm going into my community and I'm going to announce it as a challenge. Therefore, I've declared it. There was a study that I'd read, but I just remember there was a blurb in it that said, hills are never as steep when you walk them with a friend. I'm like, that's exactly the point of community, right? If you and I do this shitty thing together, it's going to feel a little bit less shitty. Like I walk around the Rose Bowl with my buddy Brian every week. If he cancels on me, I'm not going. If I cancel on him, he's not going. Because it's just like, it's a 3-mile journey. I don't want to do that. But I would love to hang out with Brian and walk it with him. I love that stuff. I don't even know what the main point of all that was, but
Yeah. My wife and I do a polar plunge every year. And I love it. It's great.
What do? You jump into the freezing water.
Yeah. We have a lake up near us. It's like glacial runoff. It's very cold. Yeah, jump in first of the year. It's fun. And,
Would you do it alone? Would you do it without her? Or is it because of the fact that you're both doing it?
Probably at this point, it's because we both, like, I probably would do it on my own now. And so normally there's like a group that does it but it's like a pain to get to. They have like awful parking and we don't know anybody there. So it's just kind of like doing it with the other people that are there. So this year we're like, oh, we're just going to go to this park that is on the other side of this place. And we'll just do it, the two of us. You know, when we got in and I was like in the water, sitting there, like getting ready to dunk myself, being like, I'm already in the cold water, but like dunking your head feels like a whole different experience when it's that cold. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do my head. No, I'm not. And I was like, started walking out. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be disappointed in myself if I don't do this. So I went on and did it. But would I have even gotten that close had I not had, you know, my wife there and my kids there being like, what the hell are you doing? And
chanting, dunk your head, dunk your head.
Yeah, well, because my kids are just like, why are you going to do this? This is terrible. When my daughter was 5, she was like, saw us doing it. She's like, I'm going to go in. And she like ran into the water with her feet. And then it was so cold. She started crying so much. And I was like, and she's like, I'm never doing that again. I'm like, I can see that. You had a real bad time.
Oh my gosh.
Would I have even started doing it if I wasn't doing it with a bunch of other people? Because I have like, you know, pictures from a decade ago when I was doing it with some friends.
Wow, this is a tradition. This is a hardcore embedded tradition now.
Yeah. The only time I skipped is when I had an open wound on my hand and I was like, I don't want to go in a lake with an open wound. That seems like a bad choice. I'd been cleaning and crushed my finger.
Crushed it?
I was moving a like medicine ball and was being like, oh, I'm just going to do it, and like, you know, impulsively tried to like toss it somewhere else. And instead of tossing it, I just tossed my finger with it and into a wall.
I'm like, so that's how you got out of it, huh? That's how you got out of your cold plunge.
Yeah, I was like, nope, not doing it this year because fingernail came off and gross. It was awful. But yeah, but other than that, yeah, it's been like every year.
Oh, that's super cool.
Would I do that without anyone else there? Would I have started doing that without anyone else there? Probably not. I don't know. I was like, I'm thinking like, I just feel weird to be like, well, I'm going to go walk in this water and walk out of this water and then I'm done. And like, oh no, it's doing it with other people that makes that a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And just being around others and doing things with others, I think that's a big deal. And I know like connection's a big deal for people that are depressed. It's one of those hard things to do when you are depressed.
Yeah.
Is to connect and find those connections. I know this, I'm kind of taking this into a dark place. I don't apologize for that.
But talking with someone about this yesterday, it's like how when you are in that space, doing the things you know that are going to help are so hard to do.
They're the hardest things, right?
Yeah.
So that having the easiest possible way to get to that connection, I think, is a big deal.
Yeah. Well, and I think when I was talking with Emma, I was like, you need to preemptively do things. And if you're building your community, you're going to have people being like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Like, just having that like little like olive branch, like you can come and not do anything. You don't have to turn on the camera. Just if you're there, we'll be thrilled.
Yeah. I love that. And I find that a lot of us, like we all know that we all have the co-occurring conditions, right? The depression, the anxiety, all of the fun ones.
Yeah.
And just that aspect of knowing, like I know in our community, we have a number of us that have depression as well. And it's like, you run hot, you run cold, but you always know that there's acceptance. I think that's a big deal. I think I said it earlier, like Hope surrogacy, I think, is a thing. I'm no therapist, but here's what I believe in. Sometimes we need hope surrogates. We need, like, and I'm speaking as a person with depression who, this is how I feel. Sometimes we need people to believe in us when we don't believe in ourselves, to hold our hope for us, right? This kind of chokes me up a little bit, but because you're like, oh, well, it feels weak or whatever. And I'm like, it's not. It's just, it's an okay thing. And it's a warm thing. And it's based out of love and about camaraderie and people who know the experience that you're feeling. Like, it's really like somebody that's like not depressed, who's not in a depressive episode, are so much more, in my view, qualified to help somebody that's in a depressive episode, because they know exactly where that person is. The ideations, the whatever, the hopelessness, all that stuff. They're like, I know where you're at.
Yeah, not asking anything of that person. Like, I know,
man.
Asking anything of me when I'm depressed, nothing's going to happen. It's just like, I might do something, but it's not going to give me space to get out of the depression. Like, I'll be like, I'm just like, I'm making lunches for kids. That's what I'm doing. And then I'm going to go sit in the closet for a while.
Sit in the closet for a while. Because that's where I'm going. Yes, totally. I call them my core four. Because when I'm depressed, nobody likes me. I'm positive that people think I'm a huge turd and would love for me just to not exist. You can't convince me otherwise. That truth, just the brain won't let me not believe that. So I have a core four, which is like, there's four people that I'm super close to that know about getting depressed. They know about depression, and I can call them. I can do the thing that you're supposed to do that you never want to do, which is call somebody. They are available. They're beautiful people. They're like, this chokes me up, but it's like, they know, they get it. And so they're like, I'll be there for you no matter what. Even though you think I hate you, I'll show up for you. Oh, I think that's beautiful. We all need those core four.
Yeah, because you don't think anyone likes you because of how little you like yourself. And it's just
yes. Oh, isn't that the worst? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, and I'm like, and it's, I hate the retrospect too, when you're like, man, that didn't make any sense. And it's like, but I think that's like an important thing to also realize is that, like, yeah, you are a different person in that state. You cannot rely on a lot of what you think you would do. You have to figure out, like, okay, what will I actually do? Not versus what should I do? What can I get myself to do that will, like calling one of your core four, like that is something, okay, I can do this because even though I feel like this, I can do it. But a lot of times, like, we come up with these strategies where, like, oh, I'm going to do this thing. This is, the my infinite energy, infinite motivation. Like,
I'm going to go for a jog.
It's like, oh yeah, going out and exercise, great for depression. True. Also, not something that's going to happen.
I know. Isn't that the craziest? Yeah.
One of the things I find, I can go drive, and as long as I'm not having ideations of like having a traffic accident, that's great.
Yeah.
But it's just like, oh yeah, the movement, it being outside helps, and I can just do that.
For sure. I love that. I'm in LA, so like the fires it put me in a depressive episode. But the other day I was having all these thoughts, and I started writing them down because they were so stupid. They were so like, I can't even think of one, but it would just be like, nobody loves you. It would be something like that. Like something that you put on paper and you're like, I don't want to fight that thought. Which is sometimes what we tend to do. We tend to be like, no, I have to convince myself I'm lovable. I have to start showing myself the data that I'm like, no, I don't believe I don't believe it. So the answer for me it's very like ACT oriented. Well, we could talk about that in a second, but it's like it's very much like, that's the thought. The thought is the thought. I don't have to do anything with it. I'm just going to go, that's there. And I'm going to have myself the day. I'm going to go do something. But the thoughts are they're not real. That has been pretty helpful to me, at least to curb the ruminating a little bit, Well,
it's so funny when you write them down and you're just like, did I really just write that nobody loves me?
I know.
Oh my God.
Isn't
oh
that
my
so
God.
crazy? Yes.
This is a great strategy with ADHD stuff too. Is like, be like, I can never remember my keys. And you're like, that seems like a stretch. And you're like, okay, well, I seldom remember take my keys. And I'm like, well, that's more true. And now, oh, maybe I can do something with that.
Yes. Maybe it's not about becoming a person that remembers their keys. It becomes about what does a person who has a struggle of remembering their keys, what does that person do so that their keys are top of mind or in front of them or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is where where we have to fight that black and white thinking writing it down, such a huge piece to like, oh, that when it's in my head, that's fine. When I write it down, I'm like, that's not something I would say to someone else. Because
isn't it? It kind of helps you get perspective sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're like looking at it as a third party. You're looking at it as an objective viewer of the text, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, and it's funny how that works. I know I'm all one person, but I do feel like, I'm the observer of myself sometimes, and then I have the observer of the observer. I don't think I go deeper than that. But
who observes the observer of the observer? That's the person we're trying to get to.
Yeah. Because, when the observer sees that, they go, yeah, that's dumb. And the person goes, the internal person's same person. They're like, yeah, you're right. I should probably, I still feel that way, but I now have a little bit of separation and maybe I can think about, it's a thought rumination where it's just like, this just is a thought that's repeating and repeating and repeating and it's not clearing, and writing it down kind of helps clear it out.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It helps us to see it for what it is. And for me, it was like, it's not something that I have to try to force alter. I've done this a bunch on my podcast and in the community of like, affirmations are not really a thing for me. Like I can't fight ruminations by going into a mirror and saying, I love you. I love you, buddy. You're lovable. Like my brain is like, you're an idiot. No, you don't. I'll tell you why you don't love yourself. Remember in third grade, remember in fourth grade, But I'm like, the thing that I will do is they're called task formations. They're like, what does a person that loves themselves, what do they do? Oh, maybe they go for a walk. Okay, well, maybe when I'm not feeling like shit. But like, maybe there's some things that I can do that I can go, hey, brain, look, you idiot. Not that I have a contentious relationship with my brain. I'm sorry, William. The, hey, friendly brain that tells me all the horrible things in the world. Look, I do love myself. Look what I did. I did a thing.
Yeah. I remember one time having a thought that was with that contentious brain word being like, man, you're such a piece of shit for doing that. And I was like, you're not a piece of shit. Only a piece of shit would call themselves a piece of shit. Like, God damn it, brain.
Totally. The brain is like, the brain is like the world's greatest lawyer. And it has all the data on why you are a piece of shit. It will say it basically. And so you go to court with the brain and the brain is like, oh, Your Honor, exhibit A through infinity. And I'm sitting there going, but I have a shitty working memory. I can't remember anything. What are the good things? But your brain is so fast with the bad stuff that how do you fight it? Yeah. It's like, in my head, I'm like, well, it's not a fight. It's yeah, you're there. I'm going to go do a thing now.
Yeah. I think that's why it's so important for a lot of people to have like these like to-do lists and like, things they've done, all like celebrating wins and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, because that's not my natural inclination. I need to build the tools in to make it so that it happens at least sometimes.
Yes. And I mean, how good does it feel? And this is to everybody that's listening right now, is it means the world to hear from somebody that their work is meaningful. Like, so when you get a good review on your podcast, doesn't that make you feel good in the moment? And have you ever been like, even though you have one of the most successful ADHD podcasts out there, do you ever feel like, oh, I'm dumb? Or
all the time.
What am I doing? Yeah.
How many times this week have I felt that way?
I know. So everybody listening, come on, throw the guy his 5-star review. He earned it. He's earned it. He's helped the hell out of you. Come on. Anyway, that was my side note. But these kinds of things where we hear things are helpful. Big time.
Yeah, because brain isn't helping me on its own, so.
I know. I know. We could philosophize about this for hours, man. Like of what is the ultimate goal? And is it to get our brain to chatter all the time that it loves us? And I think that that's not a thing, because the brain is meant to keep us alive. So it is meant to constantly be looking for problems. And it's constantly meant to do that.
It has negativity bias because
For sure.
like, well, I just watched Steve eat those poison berries. Let's not do that because he is having a bad day now. Or, like, yeah, I have those berries and they gave me the runs and now I'm never going to eat those berries again. Like, that is important for our brains. Like, that is a survival thing. Like, our brains need to have that negativity. Like, when those bad things happen, we really need to know about it.
Yeah. And then that happens like with all kinds of things, right? In our childhood, when we get broken up with for the first time and we think, falling in love is evil because it will hurt you and hurt is equal to killing you. So in order to survive, don't put yourself out there, right? It's like all kinds of crazy, like, don't try hard because every time you try hard, you fail. Remember 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. Mm-hmm. Oh shit, I guess I have to not try.
Yeah,
it's like crazy shit.
Trauma is just our brain trying to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
Admittedly in a very poor fashion, but it is trying to protect us.
I know. Gosh.
Like, we're going to never let that happen again. But the doing so is causing problems. We're never going to let that happen again.
Yeah. Ever. All situations are this situation. You will never divert.
Yeah.
Like, oh God. Thanks, brain. You're great.
Oh, all right. Well, is there anything you want to leave the audience with?
If you're an ADHDer that is an adult and is wondering why you aren't still doing the stuff, even though you know the stuff, really look into joining a community. I'm biased towards mine, obviously, because it's ADHDBigBrother.com, or actually the community is ADHDBigBrother.circle.so. It's a really cool community platform. I can't stress enough how much I believe that community is the thing that's missing in a lot of people with ADHD's lives. And I do believe that we can do things on our own. However, it is supremely helpful to get in the nest, build up your wings, and then fly. And then try to do it on your own. And if you splat on the ground, no big deal. You just climb back in the nest and you get work on your wings some more. It's not meant... Oh, you know what? This is a good thing to say. Because I was the same way with my quit group with nicotine. Community isn't necessarily meant to be forever, but it's meant to be there for you when you need it. When you get your shit together, then you can then become a support vessel. Like, you can then offer your support. That's my ramble about that.
I think community is one of those pillars that we often gets overlooked because people are like, sounds hard.
Yeah. Or is it, they're like, I already know everything, so I'm just going to do that. And once I just do that, I'll be done. Yeah. You're like, well, but you got to do the things, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, but I really appreciate you having me on. It's super fun talking to you, man. And
yeah, I had a great time.
I had a blast. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks again to Russ for coming on the show, and thank you for sticking with us all the way to the end. If you want to check out more of Russ's work, be sure to go check out ADHD Big Brother. But before you go, let's do a quick rundown of today's top tips. 1. When you're stuck in a rut, having people who believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself, can be a game changer. This is one of the places where having a strong community can really help you flourish. 2. Traditional goal setting doesn't always work. If you're finding yourself stuck, try a reverse mountain approach. Instead of imagining the goal at the top, imagine yourself at the top and let the momentum pull you down, guiding your each next step toward your goal. 3. If something is important but boring, find ways to inject fun, novelty, or urgency to make it more engaging. If the task still feels unbearable, set a 10-minute timer and see how far you get. If you still don't want to do it, try switching things up, and then work on finding an approach that does work. Alright, that's it. Thanks for listening. I'd love to hear what you thought of this episode. Feel free to connect with me over at hackingYourADHD.com/contact. If you'd like links or to read this episode's transcript, you can go to the show notes page at hackingYourADHD.com/214. If you'd like even more Hacking Your ADHD, be sure to sign up for my newsletter, Any and All Distractions, which comes out every other week. In it, I give out my best distractions of the week, be they what I'm reading, what I'm playing, or what I'm watching. I also try to give a few bits of actionable advice in each newsletter, although I'm sure your mileage is going to vary there. If that sounds like something you're interested in, head over to hackingYourADHD.com/newsletter to sign up. I also want to let you know about our Patreon that I've been reworking. You can easily find that at hackingYourADHD.com/Patreon. I'm trying to go with a pay-what-you-want model, meaning that all levels of the Patreon will receive the same stuff. You can pay $0 or $2 or $10, and it's all the same. The only real difference coming from the roles that are assigned on the Hacking Your ADHD Discord, Which reminds me that I also wanted to announce that we're now on Discord, which you can get access to from the Patreon, which again is pay what you want. So if you want to come check out the Discord or the Patreon, you can get yourself some access over at hackingYourADHD.com/Patreon. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which you can find at youtube.com/@hackingYourADHD. And I'm also now on Blue Sky, which you can find, again, at hackingYourADHD. Finally, if you'd like to support the show, the best way to do so is to tell someone about the show, especially if you think a particular episode would resonate with them. Just click the share button on the podcast player and send it over to them. And now for your moment of dad. I just watched a documentary on marijuana, and man, all documentaries should be watched this way.